Welcome to the Forecast, a Fortify Rights podcast. We bring you to the front lines of human rights work.
There's ongoing war in Rakhine State now, and the conflict dynamics are ever changing.
Overall, the civilians are the ones who are suffering from the exploitation and also from the oppression of all these armed groups.
Genocide is ongoing and it is happening against the Rohingya.
What's the forecast for human rights concerns in Myanmar's Rakhine State? Stay tuned.
Welcome to the Fordcast, everyone. This is John Quinley, Director at Fortify Rights. Today we will discuss the situation in Rakhine State, also known as Rakhine State in western Myanmar. Specifically, we will look at how, for decades, former governments in Myanmar and the current military junta have confined nearly 500,000 Rohingya Muslims as well as Kaman to internment camps and villages in Rakhine State, which constitutes a situation of mass arbitrary detention and an act of genocide under international law. Since the uptick in attacks in November in 2023 in Rakhine State, there have also been daily attacks in the ongoing war between the Rakhine Army, an ethnic resistance organization, and the Myanmar junta, and its effects on civilians are massive. There are reports of the Rakhine Army abducting Rohingya, using Rohingya villages as outposts. Furthermore, my colleagues and I at Fortify Rights have documented airstrikes, artillery attacks, and killings of civilians by the Myanmar military in Rakhine States for a long time now, and recently since the war. Joining me today to discuss the situation is Ijaz Minkant, a human rights associate with Fortify Rights. Ijaz has been working in Rakhine State, following the situation closely. For those watching on YouTube or video platforms, Ijaz will not be featured on camera for security reasons this episode. Ijaz, welcome.
Thank you, John. Thank you for introducing me. And we hope we will have a very good podcast today.
Yeah, I'm excited to hear your insights, and particularly to talk about the situation in Rakhine State. You know, there's a lot going on there now. Ijaz, could you tell me about the current situation of Rohingya and Kaman Muslims in the internment camps across Rakhine State?
Yes, so we can say the situation is very awful and dire now. So to give you a background of the IDPs in Rakhine State, so since the state-sponsored violence in Rakhine State in 2012, like a tragic situation unfolded for over 150,000 Rohingya and Kaman Muslims who have been forcefully expelled from their homes and subjected to confinement in the overcrowded and segregated camps. And Rohingya and Kaman Muslims have endured a decade of suffering, stripped of their homes, possessions, and family members. And now their living condition is very worse by heavy restrictions on their livelihoods, freedom of movement, access to medical health care. So in addition to that, Rohingya have been denied citizenship rights, further marginalizing and isolating them from other societies. Since the conflict escalation between the Arka army and the junta in November 2023, the situation has only intensified the suffering of the Rohingya and Khmer Muslims in these camps. So majority of these IDPs, like Rohingya and Khmer Muslims, are confined in Pauto Township and Sitri Township. The imposition of stricter restrictions, including complete blockade on humanitarian aid and healthcare access, has made their lives quite vulnerable. Many of these individuals now face difficulties in securing regular food due to severe restrictions imposed upon them.
Ijaz, can you tell me a little bit more about the situation in Pakto? I understand now the Arkan Army controls a lot of that area. What would you say to the Arkan Army now that they control that area? What should they be doing to support the Rohingya and Kaman?
Yeah, so in late February, the Arakan army fought with the junta and liberated the Pauto township from the junta. So now Arakan army has full control over this township where many Rohingya IDPs exist, camps exist. Now that they have the control, so they should act and work on it to slowly and gradually set free them from the internment camps.
Ijaz, what actions do you believe are required to end the ongoing confinement and suffering of Rohingya and Kaman in these internment camps?
It is imperative that the international community takes decisive action to address this humanitarian tragedy. Pressure must be exerted on the junta to lift these restrictions imposed on the Rohingya and Kaman Muslims and put an end to their unjust confinement in the camps.
Mm,
The crimes committed by the junta are grave, and accountability is very essential to ensuring justice for the victims.
mm. Thank you, Ijaz. Yeah, I think that's an important part of the conversation. We want justice for our Rohingya friends and colleagues and others in Rakhine State. Ijaz, a lot has happened in Rakhine State since we published the research on the confinement of Rohingya and Kaman. There's ongoing war in Rakhine State now, and the conflict dynamics are ever changing. Can you explain to the audience and people tuning in to the Fordcast about the different actors?
So to say it now, the conflict dynamics seems very complex now. Before the conflict was between the junta and the Arakan Army, AA, which is a resistance armed group. And now that the Arakan Rohingya Salvation Army and also the Rohingya solidarity organizations are involved in this conflict, overall, the civilians are the ones who are suffering from the exploitation and also from the oppression of all these armed groups. We are hearing like a lot of reports from the ground where these armed groups are committing serious human rights violations, for example, abducting, extortion, and also forced recruitment, and also like extrajudicial killings. So these reports have been coming in since this March. So the civilians need protection, and the international community also must press all the armed groups involved in this conflict to refrain from violating human rights and also to protect the innocent civilians.
Mm. Ijaz, the documentation that you've done in the internment camps is critical. Can you spotlight one of the cases that you documented as an example?
I can give an example of a particular case where a Rohingya man, 32 years old, from Annauye camp of Pauta township. So he has been confined in this internment camp since 2012. So he shared a case of his cousin. She died during her pregnancy because of the healthcare access restrictions. Because during the nighttime, the junta doesn't allow to do movements from camps to other hospitals. They had to wait during the whole night, and it was the morning they tried to set out from the house. But by that time, she died in that situation. So this kind of cases are common in the camps because they can't access regular healthcare, emergency healthcare, because of this kind of inhumane restrictions on the Rohingya and Khmer Muslims in the camps.
Ijaz, you've documented the ongoing atrocities in Rakhine State, even beyond the ongoing internment in central Rakhine. Ijaz, you also documented an incident in Butidong, airstrikes, artillery fire of a Rohingya village. Can you tell me a little bit about what happened between the Arakan army and the Myanmar military in that village?
So this case happened on January 25th. We documented the incident in Pongyong Lake village, where the Arakan army positioned themselves around a Rohingya village called Pongyong Lake. And the junta started firing artillery to this village. Later, over 10 people were killed, and also we documented over 40 people were injured in that village. The villagers we talked to, they shared the Arakan army didn't provide any notice to these people before they positioned themselves around the village. And also, they were not given enough time to escape from the village. So we have documented such cases in other cases also where the armed groups involved in the conflict didn't provide notice before they start a war from nearby a civilian or a Rohingya village.
Ijaz, that's such a egregious case that you documented in Butidong, and I know the violations are still ongoing, and you're monitoring the situation. We hope and pray that the violence stops and it stops affecting these women and children so badly. So thanks for sharing that. Ijaz, I just want to add a little bit to this conversation. Because of the ongoing war and violations that you're talking about, a lot of Rohingya are fleeing to Bangladesh. Rohingya refugees are trying to cross into Bangladesh. Fortify Rights has recently documented pushbacks by Bangladeshi authorities. Rohingya refugees are urgently trying to seek safety in Bangladesh, and we found that the Bangladeshi authorities push back refugees, and that's considered refoulement under international law. Refoulement is pushing people back into situations of ongoing violence or persecution. We believe that Dhaka and Sheikh Hasina should condemn these kind of actions at the highest level and allow refugees to seek safety in Bangladesh. I was just at the Bangladesh-Myanmar border down in Teknaf monitoring the situation down there, and we believe it's very urgent. The Bangladeshi authorities need to take responsibility for these refugees crossing over. Ijaz, what do you think the forecast is in Rakhine State, and what are the recommendations you would give us today?
All armed groups involved in this conflict, we would encourage they refrain from harming normal civilians, and also they refrain from using disproportionate use of force. They should protect all the civilians without discrimination based on ethnicities and religions. And the other thing is all the international groups, human rights groups, activists, and all those who are in power, they should call for independent investigations about the allegations and the reports coming in from the Rakhine State that the Arakan army and the junta and the other armed groups are committing in Rakhine State.
Ijaz, on calling for independent investigations, international accountability, what would you recommend the international community do and member states do?
I would also encourage the ICC member states refer the Myanmar situation, including the Rakhine State situation, to the International Criminal Court. The referral of the military regime to the ICC is a critical step towards ensuring that justice is served and that such heinous acts couldn't go unpunished.
Thank you, Ijaz, for joining us today and providing an update about the ongoing situation in Rakhine State. We're recording this episode from the Fort, a space for changemakers to build community in Southeast Asia, located in the heart of Bangkok, Thailand. Thank you so much for tuning in. This has been the Fortcast. See you next time.
Thank you, everyone.